Good morning, everybody, and I would like to first all thank the extract environmental sustainability Rotary Action Group for hosting us in the Digital Innovation Pavilion. It's really a pleasure being here, being also a Rotarian. We also have other Rotarians among us in the group and Rotaract. So it's a real pleasure to be here. And so today we're going to start our session. And I think we should start with the presentations from our dear COP30 Simulation. They're working very hard on their presentation, covering just transition and aid, education and gender equality. So let's start with our first presenter, which is Camila, who is from the Federal University of ADC. Hi, I'm Camila.
Please.
Yeah? Okay, yeah. So, yeah, and today I'm presenting Action for Climate Empowerment as in Action, Generating Distribution, Enhancing Climate Adaptation and Youth Diplomacy. So, our goal with this presentation is to explore how climate education, gender equality, and youth participation are interconnected within the broader framework of space, and why these elements are essential for just transition. We also approach age through the lens of climate inequality to understand how truly empowered generation requires gender parity and equal participation. Just next slide, please. Okay. So before beginning our presentation, here's our agenda. So first, I'll introduce like a little bit about about just transition and ACE, why do we use gender equality, why it involves youth, then statistics. After that, education, ACE, and gender equality. Then why does climate education matter? Some case studies, and after our conclusions. So next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. All right. So yeah. So yeah, I think one slide is missing, but I'm just going to introduce a little bit about the COP Simulation Program. So the COP Simulation Program is a youth program organized by the British University in Egypt and the United Nations Development Programme, where they take students from all over the world and make it to simulate roles such as country delegations, super negotiators, non-state actors, etc. So this year they got 130 students from 47 countries and 91 universities. So to practice global governance and learn how climate negotiations actually work. So yeah. Okay, so now just transition and ACE, why does it include gender equality? So according to Castillo, no, yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. So according to Castillo, this transition is bringing the economy in a way that is fair and inclusive as possible to everyone concerned, creating different work opportunities and leaving no one behind. So this definition reminds us that this transition is about social justice and about people. So yeah, and this transition can only be truly just if everyone's included and all the marginalized groups are also included, such as youth, women. So yeah, this is what just transition is. So that's why gender is not optional, because we can't have just transition if certain groups are still out of the negotiation room, out of the I forgot the term name, like the well, I'm gonna read it, sorry, about the decision making process, the decision making process. So this is where it comes in, because ACE is about education, participation, and employment. There's no climate empowerment without inclusion, and there's no inclusion without gender equality. So yeah, now Olivia will take over and cover the relation between this transition and you. Thank you, Camilla. Olivia from Sciences School.
Thank you very much. My name is Olivia. I'm Brazilian Swedish, and I did my master's at Science School. So for the next question, why should we involve youth in just transition in general? Well, engaging with youth is important as it can enhance local democracy and social acceptance, and it brings fresh perspectives to current challenges, and that's very crucial to engaging because we will also see the demography that will be experiencing the midterm and long-term consequences. And there are many nations, as well as organizations and NGOs that are fully aware of this. So actually the European Commission launched in 2021 the youth toolbook of how to engage youth, and they emphasize three different aspects. The first one is inform youth, ensure access to relevant and understandable information. The second one is consult youth, solicit and value their opinions and perspectives. And last but not least, and the most important part, include youth in decision making, integrate them structurally into the process itself. So we move on to the next slide. I just wanted to put an overview of which actually youth constituencies exists. I mean, there are many small grassroots level projects, but of course there's some more established ones. And the most important one that probably many know of is Yango, which is the official youth constituency of the UNFPA. Then there's specific subject-led youth organizations. So we have the Student Energy, which is youth from all over the world. Then we have Meet Y20, which is the youth group for the G20. And then, of course, like the most important one, which is the COPPE Simulation Programme. Let's move on to the next slide. So what is important to emphasize is that even though we know the importance of youth engagement, sometimes the voices are actually not taken into account, and it's hard to have them integrated into the processes as we've mentioned. And because of this, I wanted to give a case example of how to do that properly. So the province of Groningen in the Netherlands realized this problem and decided to establish a permanent youth advisory council for the province itself. So, for example, when they launched the Just Transition Programme for the province, then
Yeah, so next up is Alice from Manchester Metropolitan University. Hi, so I'm going to go over some statistics about women in politics and youth in politics. So we have some data here. I have made some graphs that you can see that the number of countries with women in the highest position of executive power never exceeds 17 and hasn't ever. So currently, well, as of 2024, because 2025 is not out yet, we're not finished with it, it was at 15. Now, we have seen an increase since 2000, but if you look over at the next graph, you see comparatively the number of positions of the highest executive power. So you have total positions of executive power, and the green is the amount held by women. So it is just the graph on the left represented against the total amount of positions available. And you can see that we do need to do more. I have some fun punchy statistics. So the World Economic Forums published their 2025 Global Gender Gap report and highlighted political empowerment as the area where women experience the most gender inequality. So 102 countries across the globe have never had a female head of state or government. 8% of heads of government in 2025 are women. 12% of the heads of state are women, while the average of women in parliament is only 27.2%. 22.9% of all cabinet ministers are women globally, and 28% of all environmental cabinet positions are held by women. So there is a lot of areas where we need to improve the gender equality and reach gender parity.
We've also got some statistics on youth in politics. So the Global Youth Participation Index collects data on youth involvement in social and economic, civil spaces, political affairs, and electoral affairs. So the GYP average for political affairs for 2025 is only 51. And the average age of world leaders from 1945 to 2003 was 58. That is not quite old, but like not really representative of the youth. There are 28 countries across the globe where there is no political representation for youth. So as my colleague pointed out, the constituencies for youth within climate change, there are 28 countries that have no participation for youth in any aspect of the political system. This report really highlighted the pattern of struggle amongst young people across the globe to be recognised and truly integrated into national and international political systems.
Thank you, and some very interesting statistics, which calls for more work and implementation on the ground. Okay, so next is Finn from Manchester Metropolitan University.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to look at two of the pillars of ACE, specifically education and training from the perspective of gender equality. So starting off with education, we can see that women account for nearly 2/3 or 765 million adults without basic literacy skills, and only 49% of countries' primary schools have achieved gender parity, and that drops as children get older. So it goes down to 42% at lower secondary and down to 24% at upper secondary. This is quite an alarming figure, and you might be wondering, well, what can drive the drive as they get older? Things such as child marriage, non-gender responsive curricula, increased likelihood of experiencing harassment, while there's also women face greater family responsibilities, and particularly in families that are poverty-stricken, and also that boys are favoured in poverty when it comes to prioritising education. Next slide, please. So when it comes to training and education, how does this affect teaching of young people going forward? Well, 69% of primary school teachers are women, and while only 4% of teachers felt confident about teaching the severity of climate change, what you can sort of draw from this is that there's a link between the lack of education from a young age, and it can lead into your adult life when it comes to teaching about climate change going forward. And only a third felt able to explain the effects of climate change in their region. Next slide, please. So why does climate education actually matter so much? When there is greater awareness over climate change, it leads to a higher level of concern. You can see this across different topics. So students of the sciences and the biology, physical and biological sciences have a higher awareness of climate change, and that leads to a positive impact on their behaviours. And when it comes to climate education for girls, it increases general resilience and builds capacity to engage with and lead climate solutions. Obviously, here is a correlation between awareness, concern, and behaviour, along with the benefit of increased gender equality. Next slide, please. So Denmark is a good example of a nation that's got good gender equality within education, and we can see the impact across their concern over climate change. So Denmark actually has climate change education embedded in their curriculum across multiple different subjects, and it's not as a standalone subject. And despite being one of the least vulnerable nations to climate change, they have the highest concern among European nations. So 79% of Danish people think climate change is, and its consequences, is the biggest challenge facing humanity in the 21st century. And the impact by age group is quite heavily skewed towards the younger generation. So you can see that 15 to 20-year-olds, 68% of them report an impact, while only when you get to 64-plus-year-olds, only 37% of them report an impact. So what you can infer from these statistics is that climate change education increases their awareness and therefore their perceived impact of climate change, despite not necessarily being the most vulnerable towards it.
Greetings to the honorable panel and the delegations and colleagues.
I'm Natanya Dawi, a senior law student at the British University in Egypt, and I'm from Libya. And I shall be analyzing the case study of Côte d'Ivoire to continue and build on what have mentioned by the respectful colleagues. The Women Adapt program in Côte d'Ivoire exemplified gender-exclusive approach to enhancing climate resilience, particularly that critical regions like Poro, where 90% make a living from agriculture, which has been directly impacted by climate change. However, this initiative directly addresses the vulnerability of agricultural livelihoods, especially in female-headed households, which disproportionately affected by harvest losses and their the result of climate change. Accordingly, such a program focuses on two key main pillars. First, enhancing capacity by providing practical training in climate resilience, agricultural methods such as utilizing water conservation techniques like drip, and integration of developing specialized throughout resilient crews. The second pillar is empowering women's leadership, as they are the most affected category in such matters. Through moving by just technical training, this program ensures women gain control over new technologies and make them updated through also financial resources, thereby increasing their decision-making process within the household and the community. Accordingly, the rationale behind such a program is rooted in understanding that climate change is a significant threat, multiplayer, in existing gender inequalities and limiting women's participation in decision-making process for mitigation and adaptation. As women bear unpaid and also they're not widely engaged in agricultural activity. And this was proven by many studies, including that based on several studies, around 40 to 90 landowners, the women representation here is only 1 to 5%. Therefore, such a program is really crucial, especially by providing capacity programs. And now we shall move to the next slide, please. And now, accordingly, I shall be providing our recommendations and outcomes. First, redefining representation. As an Excellency, the General Secretary of the United Nations has quoted, it starts with equal representation of women leadership positions where decisions are taken that affect people's lives. His Excellency has emphasized on the question of power. At COP29, women still comprise only 34% of party delegates, and critically, only 7 out of 78 of the world leaders. Accordingly, we shall propose an action where, for the COP30, where parties are encouraged to adopt decisions requiring an increase in gender representation. Moving to the next proposal is institutionalizing governance. Beyond representation, we must institutionalize gender and equity within climate governance. We recommend the establishment of national gender councils. These would legally mandate multi-stakeholder councils with binding advisory over NDCs and NAPs and climate finance allocation. However, we have to learn from the case study of Kenya, where they have implemented such a program under the Constitution, specifically Article 27 and the Climate Change Act. However, such a program lacked in the implementation because of the insufficiency of enforcement law. Accordingly, we shall include that ACE is the engine of justice transition. It turns education and awareness into shared decision and lasting impact for youth and women. Gender responsive youth centers design, less legitimacy, innovation, and long-term delivery. Accordingly, moving forward, there needs to be clear mandates
for youth participation and greater focus of gender equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you very much. And, I'd like to thank you all for your hard work on your presentations and research. You covered very really important topics: women, gender, youth, and AIDS, which includes, of course, education and awareness, which is very vital in our in dealing with climate changes. And also thank you for giving us these case studies on Denmark, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, and finally for the recommendations. And I know that UN Women are proposing, there is a gender action plan, which is a gap, which puts women and girls at the heart of climate action. It is a tool to boost women's participation and leadership. An updated plan is due to be submitted in COP30, and hopefully that the plan is bold, inclusive, and transformative. And UN Women calls on gender equality to be front and center across all climate solutions. And also EU rallied statement calling for the adoption of an ambition and action-oriented gap that builds on progress, the progress that has already been made, closing all the remaining gaps and ensuring that all women and girls fully participate and benefit from climate action. So as I said before, we are really calling not only for policies, but also for actual implementation. And with that, I would like to give the microphone to our guest, Dr. Owen Doyle from the University of Durham. And if you'd like to further introduce yourself as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's a real privilege to be here. My name is Owen Doyle. I am with Durham University in the UK at the Centre for Sustainable Development Law and Policy. Thank you for your reflections, Nancy. Yes. So thank you all for those amazing presentations. They were really inspiring. Yeah, and so relevant to what we're doing at the centre as well. So yeah, well done everybody. I think first reflections would be on some general remarks on gender and what we're doing on gender at the moment. I manage a portfolio of projects which are on just transition, and under that umbrella we have one project that's specifically looking at gender responsiveness. As the Paris Agreement says that there's a need for gender responsiveness in climate action and policy making. And this is something that we're looking at now in how gender responsiveness is incorporated into NDCs. NDCs are nationally determined contributions that all parties have to, the Paris Agreement have to publish and outline how they will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and the steps they take to tackle climate change. And at the moment, we're kind of just started analysing these NDCs to see how gender responsiveness is represented in there. And it's a really challenging task because there's a big difference in having a mentioning or reference gender responsiveness and actually demonstrating that you're have gender responsive policies and that we've gone the extra mile and have those consultations with the right groups of people in order to make more fair and equitable climate policies. So yeah, I might steal some of what I was doing for our research on women in power because I think that could be really relevant for that. It was really, really interesting. What else did I like to say? On what Olivia said about inform, consult, and include. I thought that was really interesting because at the centre we're taking a lot of steps at the moment to be more inclusive with our students, so bringing more youth into our governance areas. So we include students directly in the Centre for Sustainable Development Policy. They attend our governance meetings. They are actively involved, and we're here at COP as a delegation of 7 people, and we have 2 students with us. So percentage-wise, that's hopefully good representation. On climate adaptation, in that Danish paper is not, I live in Denmark until 2024, so it's very relevant. My wife's Danish, and so yeah, and I can say firsthand they're doing a lot of really innovative work in Copenhagen to tackle climate change and build resilient cities there. In Durham as well, we have just signed off the Durham Declaration recently, which is a collaboration with 39 Cambridge universities to tackle climate change and sustainability. That declaration reflects the shared commitment of the universities across Europe to tackle climate change and to embed sustainability across all aspects of our academic life. So Durham has put sustainability right in the forefront of our work. We are ranked 24th out of 2001 universities for sustainability in the QS rankings, which is, I think, just the embargo just dropped on that, so I think I can just announce that now. And we're developing mandatory sustainability modules for all capping students, and we're also developing innovative interdisciplinary programs across departments and faculties to tackle just transitions and climate change, understanding that the biggest global challenges require collaboration across all disciplines that can't be solved from this one. So thank you very much, everybody, for your presentation. It's really interesting stuff.
Thank you very much, Dr. Owen, and we really look forward to cooperating with the Sustainability Center at the COP simulation. And finally, I'd like to give the microphone to Dr. Sarah Fishin, who is the director of the COP simulation, to give her final remarks. And before that, I just want to once again thank you, ISRAD, for hosting us in the session today. And also, of course, for those of you who do not know, have not heard about Rotary, it's an international organization, and it has been working for many, many years and across all countries. And we have 7 focus areas which all align with SDGs, including women, education, and environment, which has been recently introduced. So thank you once again. And I give the mic to Dr. Sarah to give her closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So my remarks will be to the students, of course, who are our audience today. First, with regards to the COP29 gender imbalance, it's not the case in COP simulation, right? We have good gender balance. I think it's 60-40, 60 female to 40 male. And here in this delegation, perhaps it's like 80-20. So we do maintain a good gender balance in our activities. Just quick insights for future research. If you are interested to continue your research about this topic that I see very important and very relevant, we need to also consider the impact of wars and displacement on women. This is a dimension that perhaps needs to be flagged in the next COP simulation work, and of course in your future research work, those of you who are interested in the intersection between equality, just transition, and gender. This is for the second thing that comes also at the heart of my field of work about public finance, gender responsive budgeting. Have you heard about this term before? We have a term in public finance called gender responsive budgeting. That is preparing a budget that is responsive and aligned, it has KPIs linked with gender objectives of the country. So another level is gender responsive green budgeting. Okay, so it's this intersection between green budgeting, which is the budget process, preparing the budget for a country in a way that is accommodating and including and aligning climate goals, one, and in the same time aligning also horizontally the dimensions of gender equality and women empowerment, including equality in salary, equality providing in local communities equal or fairer support of public finance to more vulnerable groups, such as women in rural areas and so on. So another line of research that I invite you to also consider for your next research is this gender responsive budgeting. Third also is the importance of peer learning and capacity building. Yes, you drew the attention about that. However, this is contingent of the support of the global financial actors and the global development actors. Because without technical assistance to those groups, to offer them the capacity building needed in their communities, governments cannot do this alone. This needs peer learning, this needs technical assistance, this needs a strong role of development institutions, listing UN Women, listing other institutions, regional institutions, and the civil society, etc. So the technical assistance here is very important to mobilize the technical capacity and the financial resources for this. One last thing is, and we see it in Egypt, we have a lot of initiatives that that consider smart green innovations, even at the small scale for small and medium enterprises. This is also needs to be leveled up in a way that considers the alignment with gender responsive objectives as well. So also those of you who see such initiatives in your countries, study them well and offer solutions that make these initiatives more gender responsive, more empowering to women, especially in marginalized areas as well. Thank you so much, and great presentations, and best of luck for you all. Thank you.